Hey, check it out. So this railgun here, you can see my cursor wiggling, is got 2.89 million kills. Okay, now watch it. I know it's going to be hard to see, but with each shot, it's getting about 4 or 5 dozen kills. It jumps from 190 to 271, so that's almost 80 kills, to 333. It's getting dozens of kills with each shot, and that's an important thing to remember. The asteroid field right now is as thick as it gets. Let's look over here at our Factoriopedia and look where we are. We are basically at 3.89 million kilometers. Sorry for you Europeans. Actually, it's just plain that's what the right answer is. 3.89 million kilometers into the asteroid field. We are at the peak point of its density, and each of these railguns is getting dozens of kills with each shot, and that's an important factor to remember. By the way, yes, I've got the volume kind of turned down because it is the noise is just overwhelming right now. Okay, for those of you who got this video in their feed and don't know what the hell is going on, we'll get to that. And for those of you who do know what's going on and wondered why the hell I would even say such a thing, because after all, who would watch a Factorio video who wouldn't understand what Factorio was? I will get to that as well. But for now, let's just give you the status of where we are at. We're 97 to 98% there. We're the journey, the entire journey is 4 million kilometers. The journey to the shattered planet, which again, for those who don't know, the shattered planet is like the farthest point in the Factorio solar system, and it's sort of a challenge. It's very much a challenge. You don't actually get any achievements for it because it is so freaking difficult. But if you can do it, it's bragging rights. You know, you did it. You did a thing, and I am so attached to Factorio that I couldn't not play this game and get this done. I absolutely had to get this done. So when I heard that this was a challenge, I had to do it. This blue line represents Prometheum asteroids. Those are wasted effort. Other than the fact that we have to blast them out of our way, they don't give us anything. All the stuff that gives us stuff is way down here, showing up at 22 huge oxide asteroids per minute. Huge carbonic asteroids only show up at 36 per minute, and then the metallic asteroids, oh, what is that at? It's so low I can't even reach it, but it's less than 20, I think. So, and the metallic asteroids are some of our most important, but because of the measures we've taken, the precautions we've taken, and some new systems that I've put in place, look at how many metallic asteroids are still on the belt. It's almost full. And that's good, because metallic asteroids, coupled with the production modules that we have in place, represent they're almost like gold, because they, at this stage, as metallic asteroids, in their asteroid form, we put them through 3 stages of production, which get us about 6 to 8 times what we would normally get out of a single asteroid, and that's been absolutely critical. It's probably one of the most important things that's allowed us to get this far. This is the most dense part of the trip, but it's gonna fall off a cliff. It literally looks like it's falling off a cliff. As we get closer to the end, it's just gonna drop. Okay, we just hit 3.9 million kilometers. All right. For those of you who don't know what's going on, for those of you who do, you don't have to pay attention. You know, just watch the pretty asteroids. Okay, if you're familiar with Factorio, Factorio is this awesome game. Normally takes place on a single planet. That's how it started out, on this planet of Novice. And let's see, let's turn all of our little doohickeys off. And you build factories, you collect resources, and you build things, you increase your level of technology little by little. And matter of fact, let's get out of the map here. And there's me. I'm in my mech suit. That is me. That's the player. Okay. And you build these factories on the planet with your at first your ultimate goal was to try to get into space. Okay, so you build a rocket and you try to get into space. Actually, I think it was to build a planetary defense system, but okay, most of it was you just get into space. And once you get into space and launch a satellite, you've won the game. Well, the same developers, who are absolutely awesome, by the way, have added an expansion. We call it Space Age. Space is where the game really begins. Now that things have changed, the game really begins, because once you get into space, you got to start building space platforms. It's one of the things, the keys to Factorio is you're building factories to increase technology through the production of what we call science packs. Are they not? Where are they at? Okay, down here. Okay, these are all the science packs. Originally, when the game started out, there were 4. And then as the game expanded, I think it expanded to 7. Is that what it was? And then at some point, and then with Space Age, they added 5 more sciences. Okay. Now it used to be as soon as you launched a rocket into space, you would start getting space science. The science would just show up on the rocket pad, and you could use it for researching stuff on the tech tree over here. And all the green represents stuff I've researched, which is just about everything that doesn't have incremental steps. The infinity sciences, I think, are the only ones that are left. Yeah, the only ones left to be researched are infinity sciences, which they'll always be yellow. There'll always be another level to go. But each science has certain science packs that are required to reach to successfully complete that science. And they get more and more complicated the more advanced science you get. The ultimate science was Space Science Pack. Where are we at? But when they added Space Age, along with space, they added other planets as well. But in order to get space science in the new mod, you would have to produce a space platform, and you would produce your science in space and drop it down to the planet. And then once you did that, you would open the door to discover other planets. So let's see, go out of the map and go to space map. Here's where you start, planet of Novice. Here's the sun, but here's the other planets you discover along the way. Vulcanus, which is your typical volcanic planet, and let's take a look at it. You establish factories there as well. It's basically a big ashtray with lava floating around. And oh, by the way, do we have any? Can we see any giant worms? Destroyers, demolishers, do we see any? Oh, there we go, right there. Yep, there goes. So you see the tail end of one. They're freaking huge. And yeah, so you have to wrestle them into submission. I don't actually mean wrestle, you need to kill them. So yeah, good luck with that. Anyway, so there's Vulcanus, whatever you want to call it. I'm not quite sure. Then there's Gleba, which is an absolute nightmare for some people, but it's an organic planet. Let's see, do we have any place on the map we can go? Nope, hang on. Gleba. Duh. Boy, you go in and out of the map all the time in this game. I'm not seeing it, but there are creatures on Gleba, and fortunately I haven't had to deal with too many of them, but large spider-looking creatures that will chase after your factory if you're not careful with your emissions. Anyway, so that's another planet. Then we have Fulgora, which is sort of a dystopian nightmare, I guess you could say. Lightning is everywhere. There's nothing natural on the planet. Not really. There's large pools of basically light oil. Is it light oil? I think it's light oil. And the ruins of previous civilizations that were here. And you scrounge those to make more resources, but you can get some good science here as well. And then Aquilo. And this is, I guess, the equivalent of Pluto. It is sort of an ice planet. You can pump, there's big oceans of stuff. You pump them out of the ocean. And what's in it? Ammoniacal. Is that how you pronounce it? Ammoniacal. That's what it looks like to me. Ammoniacal. I don't know. A solution. Basically, big oceans of ammonia. And there's a couple of chemicals that percolate out of the ground. Some sort of lithium brine, I think it's called. What do you got here? Lithium brine, that's one. And then fluorine, that's another. So anyway, yeah, stuff bubbles out of the ground, and you use that to try to produce stuff, more science packs, and oh, by the way, you have to run heat pipes everywhere to keep everything warm and thawed out, otherwise it freezes up and stops production. Anyway, so Factorio is increased to the point where there's challenges everywhere, new planets, there's new challenges with the planets, and it's just, the game has just gotten so big and absolutely wonderful. The game is absolutely awesome. And anyway, so you're constantly having to travel between these planets along this map, and you can see kind of how they're laid out. And winning the game is to be able to build a spacecraft to come here to the edge of the solar system. It says the end, or rather a new beginning. So building a ship, by that I mean building a space platform. And I've got a whole list of platforms that are going around doing their daily tasks. And I've got a couple of platforms that are more than capable of reaching the edge of the solar system. And they've got the appropriate weapons to take care of that. But I've only got one, the Axiom, which is actually equipped. We call it the Charleston Shoe of Love for a reason I hope is obvious. It's freaking huge. It is a chonky boy. I get it. Somebody pointed that out, just how freaking big it is. It is space. By that I don't mean black stuff that we're flying through or the Black Ocean. I'm talking about just physical space was important on this ship. So I made it way bigger than I needed to, in the hopes that, you know, I'd have extra space to do things that I needed to do, that I'd find out later that I needed to do, because I didn't know what I didn't know, if that makes sense. And I just knew that I might need space to add things that, at the time of construction, I wasn't sure what they'd be. And that turned out to be correct. I didn't use all the space, but I did use a lot of it. But anyway, looking at the map, so there is generally about 15,000 kilometers between each planet, okay? Depending on where you're going, Aquilo, okay, is 30,000. There's no way to get to it. Both paths to Aquilo are 30,000 kilometers. And then from Aquilo to the solar system's edge is 100,000 kilometers. But then there's this final leg. This is not to scale, obviously, but this is a 4 million kilometer trip from the solar system's edge to the remains of some planet that once existed at the edge of the solar system. It's now been shattered, a mysterious remnant of a former world far in the depths of the interstellar space. Its remnants, floating in the space it once occupied, hold the resources to unlock powerful technologies. However, accessing them is not without risk. Now, what that refers to is these red Promethium asteroids. Now, you don't have to go out to the shattered planet to get what you need to research all the science, but you do need to at least begin the journey. Leaving the edge of the solar system to go toward the shattered planet is when you start finding the red Promethium asteroids. You can collect them, you can bring them back, turn them into the final type of science, and research what you need to win the game. You don't need to complete the trip. However, a lot of us want to do it anyway, especially if you're a dedicated fan of the game. This has been my favorite game. I've been loving this game since the day it came out, and it's right up my alley. How can I call myself a true fan if I don't rise to the challenge? So for me, that's why I'm doing this. I just have to figure this out. It was like the ultimate challenge, and I think we're going to do it. The reason I'm explaining all this is because the last update video I put out, for some reason, it went viral. I mean, not super viral. It got about 3,000 views. But it was enough that it showed up in people's feeds, and they're kind of like, hey, I found this video, I don't know what it's about, looks cool, but I really could use an explanation. And I did my best to try to answer the questions, and fortunately, even the criticisms were constructive. They weren't cutting or mean or anything, they were constructive, and I appreciate that. So I tried my best to answer, and now I have to remember that even if this thing goes viral, well, shoot. I better make sure I have my ducks in a row and can explain to people exactly what it is. All right. Well, I've rambled on for quite a bit, so I'm going to just let this thing go, and I'll be back once we reach our goal. All right, less than 30,000 clicks to go, and everything's still going strong. But one thing I am noticing, I'm look at how much iron, how many metallic asteroid chunks are getting thrown overboard. That's a lot. And that means that's excess. We're collecting. That's how much excess we're collecting even now. We're throwing so much overboard. And with these wings, I don't think these wings were necessary at all. Look how many asteroids they're not collecting. Every so often, there's an iron asteroid going in, another one going in. And over here, you know, not much going on. There's one, you know, oh, there's another. And oh, that was a carbonic asteroid. So look at how little is coming in versus how much is going out because they're extra. Okay, just kind of keep that in mind. So I'm kind of thinking these wings, yeah, not so necessary. So in the future, I don't know that I'll ever attempt this again, because once it's done, it's done. But still, yeah, I don't think this was necessarily a good use of resources. Oh, something else to point out as well. We're still at the 177 units of damage. And again, that was from putting those wings on. And like I said, I extended the platform out, and in the time it took me to switch, to hit E and go over here and then, or go over to weapons and then select lasers, at that time, I got hit by a rock. It was like a 5-second window where this thing was unprotected. But coming all this way, and look how close this is getting to the corners right here. This bubble of protection here is getting to the corners, and yet protection has been enough that that 177 units that we took because of that was because of the wings. That's the only damage we've taken thus far. So very cool. Okay. 3,999,500, 600, 7, 8, 9. Done. Done. We have stopped the shattered planet. We have done it. Yes. Oh my gosh. I am so happy to complete a task in Factorio like that. I don't know that I've ever been so happy. Ah, what a relief. So let's talk. Let's look at the stats. What are the stats? Okay, let's go to save game or whatever. Let's see. We're gonna go ahead and save the game. We are at 689 hours into this game, plus almost 690 logged hours. That doesn't include attempts I made and then had to turn around, or just various things like that, or tried something and then backtracked, because I did that a couple times. Oh, look at that. Axiom is at the shattered planet. I'd love to see that icon next to it. Okay, because for those of you who aren't familiar, all the platforms that I've made thus far, there's a little icon next to it that indicates what planet it's on or how it's traveling. Like, you know, I got Chip and Dale. Chip is at Aquilo right now. Dale is at Vulcanus, and now Chip is on its way from Aquilo to Fulgora. So you can see there's a little arrow indicate the travel is happening. And for the longest time, at Axiom, this ship right here, this platform, was shown to be between the edge of the solar system and the shattered planet. So here we are. Freaking cool. Look at the asteroids getting destroyed. Shot to hell because we're no longer trying to push our way through it. That is awesome. Let's see, what else? What other stats do we have? Okay, we're still sitting at 12,000 for rockets, railgun rounds, and magazines. We still have a full belt of, or at least the way I've got this thing configured, the belt is full of asteroids, of raw captured asteroid chunks, which is good. And let's see, we have 5.4k of our fusion packs left. I started with 8, and that's one thing I have not been able to produce during the trip. I had to bring everything I needed with me from the outset. There was no producing it along the way, unfortunately. So not only did I have more than enough, but I have enough to turn around if I so desire, which I might do But, you know, doesn't matter one way or another because this ship was built for a singular purpose, and that was to reach the shattered planet. It did that. I could use it for errand duties, I suppose, going between all the planets. It was more than capable of doing that. I might do it, but I don't know. We'll see. So there's that. Damage. Well, it doesn't show the damage right now because the trip is over, but we stopped with the remaining, or I'm sorry, we stopped with the 177 units of damage that I incurred because of buffoonery. But as far as the defensive posture of the ship goes, that we suffered no damage because of a lapse in the ship's planned defense. It worked. The ship defended itself as it was supposed to. Okay, so let's talk about the pros and the cons, the pluses and the minuses, the things that worked and the things that didn't. Absolutely number one, I made a list here, is modules of all kinds, and specifically production modules, and production modules of high quality, so quality modules. And when I say modules, I'm not talking about, so let's see, let's go to E, and you have the quality ones and the quality twos, speed ones, speed twos, production ones, production twos. Efficiency ones and efficiency twos don't touch the ones or the twos, only go for the threes, okay? And then try to pump them through factories or electromagnetic, what do you call those things? Where are they? Electromagnetic plants. Try to push them through those types of assembly plants that have been outfitted with quality modules, and hopefully quality threes of legendary quality themselves, which means quality 3, legendary, got it. Anyway, so modules are absolutely essential because there's just no way we would have been able to get through this with such minuscule asteroids available that would help us. Like look at the distribution of asteroids here. Mostly the red useless Prometheum asteroids. And I say useless. Yes, they have a use in the game, but for the purposes of going to the shattered planet, they're useless. You have to expend ammunition to shoot them out of the way. But what you really want are these carbonic asteroids, you want the organic asteroids, and then you want, did we see any? Yeah, right over here we've got some metallic asteroids. Right here. And those are what you want, and the distribution becomes so scarce that there's simply no way you'd be able to do the trip unless you used productivity modules in your various steps of production. So absolutely put them in the grinders or the crushers, put them in the smelters and the foundries, and then put them into foundries down the line, you know, that create the steel, that create the copper cables, the ones that create explosives. Put them in as many stages as you can, which will just further multiply your output, your ultimate output. And you're going to get so much that you're going to get a lot of trash, okay? Anyway, so number one, modules. Number two, foundries. Okay, foundries have an inherent productivity bonus in them. So you don't even have to use any productivity modules to get a bonus, but you do want to use productivity modules to increase that bonus. So yes, use foundries. You also get better bang for your buck for some of the recipes too. Just do the math, look into it, but you'll see like iron plates. Turning molten iron into iron plates, you actually get more bang for your buck than if you were to use regular furnaces and factories. Let's talk about weapons. Railguns, absolutely. Now, I saw a couple of designs that had a bunch of railguns across the top, and I thought, this seems like a waste of ammunition, you know? Because railguns, I use so many railgun rounds. However, railgun rounds are probably the most important because railguns dish out like 10,000 damage per shot. And unlike any other weapon, they will continue dishing out that damage until the shot either expends all of its energy or it reaches the end of its range. So when you shoot through a mass of asteroids, it's going to keep going. It's not going to stop when it hits a single target like the bullets will. It's going to keep on going. What that means is you can get multiple kills with a single shot, which we talked about. Because in a highly dense asteroid environment, you're going to get dozens of kills with each shot. So as the asteroids get thicker, don't worry about using more railgun ammunition, because each shot is just going to turn the asteroid field into chum. Okay? So the railguns, use a ton of them. That makes sure that the space ahead is clear, and that makes the job easier for your rocket launchers and for your regular gun turrets and your laser turrets. Okay? And make sure you manage your targets properly. Like all my railguns, they prefer to shoot at the bigs and the huges, and they'll ignore all other targets. Okay? But even that's enough, because they'll go through the mediums and the smalls on its way to get the big ones and the huge ones. So it will still destroy, but it won't target every single freaking medium asteroid or small asteroid. So yeah, definitely pay attention to your target management. Also, lasers. When I first started building space platforms, asteroids, if we go to the Factoriopedia, asteroids are highly resistant to lasers. If you just look at them, you can see it starts at like, let's see, 20%. Okay, the smalls are 20. They're 20% resistance, which is fine. But then you get to the mediums are 90% resistance, and the bigs are 95%. But they have good range on them. The lasers, especially of legendary quality, have good range. They'll dish out damage, and they'll make it easier for the other guns that require ammunition. Lasers don't require ammunition, they just require power. And as you saw, you bring enough fusion reactors with you and enough fuel for those reactors, power's not going to be an issue. You're good. I even had, let's see, what is it? I had 2 extra fusion reactors with me, so I actually left with, I think it was 6 extra, and I added these 4 along the way just to make sure that nothing ran out. I got a ton of accumulators, but I had enough power to keep everything going. But yeah, the lasers will do the bulk of the little work, so that your guns that are more effective against the larger asteroids, like your gun turrets, they can concentrate on the bigger asteroids, while the lasers take care of the little stuff at no expense to your ammunition. You know what I'm saying? So don't be turned off by the fact that lasers aren't super effective. They're effective enough. They do the job. So just be sure to just use a freaking crap ton of them. Okay, so we got weapons, we got lasers. As you go, you're just gonna find, it's typical Factorio. I don't need to tell you how to streamline your stuff, but I should remind you that because you're running production modules, you will need to make sure you streamline your overflows. And even if it means kicking the stuff overboard, just streamline it, okay? Just make sure that they don't get bound up, because if they do get bound up, it works its way all the way back to the grinders, and then the grinders can't process anything, and it clogs the belt. And if there's a material like that you need, you might get the belt clogged up with materials you don't need because you're not throwing stuff overboard. You kind of need to. Now, that being said, I will tell you that one of the things that made my job easier, because as you do this, you're constantly adjusting your target priorities. You're adjusting your, filters in the grabbers. Okay, as the availability for materials changes, make sure you set up your filters and your grabbers so that first of all, so they don't grab any promethium. No grabber should ever grab any promethium asteroids. It's just a waste of effort. So make sure you tell it to grab any of the other 3, the ones you need. And then you can adjust them as you go. If you're getting too much carbon, you can kind of remove it from the filter, But anyway, it'll start to clog the belt, and then materials that you do need won't get through, and you'll start running out of ammunition because you're choking on other materials. So make sure you do that. Oh, so I did something very subtle, but one of the things that was happening was as I was running lower on resources, I still needed to throw stuff overboard, but not all of it. So I was constantly removing belts and putting them back, and removing and putting them back to allow stuff to be ejected overboard, especially iron and copper. And finally, it got so frustrating. I had to do it so often because what happened is I would let the belt, throw it overboard, but then it would eat through my asteroids really quick. Okay, and I didn't want to do that because I didn't know what was coming. How badly would I need this full belt of asteroids? So I would let it throw it out for a little bit, and then I'd stop, and then the belt would get plugged, and then I'd have to put the belt back in place. So what I did was I actually set up an automated circuit that, let's see, I picked one of the crushers, and I put a wire next to one of the crushers to read the contents. And if it got more than like 20 iron and I think it was 8 copper, because that's the proportions at which they're produced in the crusher. You throw a metallic asteroid in, you get 10 iron and 4 copper. If it filled with 20 of iron and 8 of copper, I sent the signal to these little, what do they call them? The belt scanners here. I attached a wire to the belt and told it to stop the belt if it dropped below 8 copper in the grinder. I wanted to preserve the copper as much as possible, so if the grinder was able to process the belt and process the copper, I would tell it, hey, shut the belt down, don't throw any of that copper overboard. And I did the same thing for the iron at 20. I set it at 20, and it actually worked really well. It would keep adjusting as the belts would, as the grinders would fill up, but they would never get overfilled. So these grinders kept processing the asteroids. If they produced it too fast, they would release the excess overboard, and if they started to over process, and then these would empty out, and then they would start processing these too fast, then I told it to stop throwing stuff overboard. That's basically what it is. It's regulating how much you're throwing to make sure that as much as possible gets used by the system. Because, hey, I was producing enough, and there was never a point at which I wasn't throwing something overboard in the course of like a 10-second period. And one thing I did do, I have a second processing plant down here. I plugged the overflow on that one so that it would jam up. So that way it takes this one out of play, because I didn't need it. I did not need this production to keep me going. I was doing just fine. So a little bit of regulation, and also I already talked about speed regulation in a previous episode, so we won't worry about that. We talked about foundries and let's see, and filters and the grabbers. Yeah, I think those are the big pluses that I had. So if you can remember all those things, remember your modules, your foundries, your railguns, your lasers, your streamlining of your belts, and it's a constant process. Okay, what you start with is not going to be what you end with. I promise you that. Just keep an eye on it, and make sure your filters on your weapons. We talked about that. And some no-goes, some things that are not so good. There's all this mega storage. Okay, the ship is big because I put all these tanks of molten iron and molten copper. I didn't need all of them. I would say with 500,000 worth of storage, everything I would have done would have been fine. And I think if you really know what you're doing, you can use even less than that. The wings, we talked about the wings. These things, the collection wings, the amount of stuff I was collecting wasn't even equal to the crap that was getting thrown overboard. It just wasn't worth it. So, not worth the trouble. If I could do it over again, I would remove those, and then there'd be no doubt that I wouldn't have gotten any damage. So anyway, there's no asterisks with that. I could simply say, hey, I got through it. I got through the journey without any damage. So there. Ha! Oh, stack inserters. That's another one. Make sure from your foundries you use stack inserters, because that effectively quadruples the capability of your belts, of the capacity of your belts. So stack inserters, yes, use stack inserters. And for those of you who haven't played Factorio in a while, stack inserters mean something different now than they did years ago. They actually, literally, I mean, look at it. It stacks. It literally stacks stuff on the belt. Okay, like in piles. Very cool. So a belt that normally a belt holds 8 items, it now holds 32. And now add that to the speed, like a speed of a turbo belt can move. You know, it says 60 items per second, but really it's moving 240 items per second. You know? Well, I think that's about it, actually. And now my belts are actually starting to empty out because I'm not doing anything. So here's what I'm going to do. Now that my engines are full of stuff, they're going to be harder to regulate. So what I need to do, I need to go ahead, I'm going to set the speed for... I'm probably going to destroy the ship in the process, maybe, because gravity is now working with me, which means, think of like going up over a hill. Okay, I've been climbing the hill all this time, and now gravity's pulling me toward the sun, so now I'm going to be going down the hill. I have a tailwind, so to speak. Let's set it for 10. Alright, set it for 10, apply, and then let us go toward the system's edge and see what happens. Okay, now my belts are actually emptying out a little bit. Let's see if we can get back up to collecting the stuff we need. Here's hoping. Alright, so anyway, hopefully y'all will get a chance to try this game. Hopefully this all makes sense. You know, thank you guys for putting up with my crap as we do this run, putting up with everything I've been trying to do. I really appreciate your patience. What am I going to do next? Don't know. I'll keep this save. Now that I've done so much on this save that it'll be a good way to test new ideas, because I've got all technologies researched and everything. And how appropriate that this is episode 42. Okay, that's just, I mean, for this sort of space science fiction setting, how perfect. The last episode in this series is number 42. Awesome. That was not planned at all. It's just the way it happened, and you know what? I'll take it. But yeah, I think that'll do it. Just stay tuned to this channel. I've got other ideas for games I'd like to try. I still want to do Shapes 2. You know what? I've been wanting to do that for a while, and just with this game having come out about the same time... Well, no, it didn't come out at the same time. Shapes 2 came out first, but then I started working on my book. And now that this is done, I want to go back to my book and do the rewrites, and then... But maybe on the side, I'll still do Shapes 2. You know what? I'd like to play with that game some. And maybe I'll do a first look. Next video, maybe first look at Shapes 2, you know? That'll be cool. I'd like to try that. And again, thank you guys so much for paying attention this long, and y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Be sure to check out this game if you haven't already. Freaking awesome. Ciao.